Hey, Service Advisor Nation. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the AutoFix Advisor Cast with your host, Michael Doherty. Hopefully, everyone's doing great and staying healthy and taking care of themselves on the front counter or wherever you are in the building, in an office, on the front counter, or maybe hiding in a corner. Today, I wanted to talk about waiter vehicles. And I've talked to a lot of shops lately in the past, probably, I'd say, a week to 2 weeks, all across the country. And asking them, do you encourage waiters or do you prefer drop offs only? And it's really been kind of I'd say a mixed bag, if you would. 50% of the people are saying, yeah, we can take in waiters, and 50% of the people are saying, no, we don't do waiters. We want drop offs. And, I think from a service advisor's perspective, obviously we want to accommodate the client as much as possible, but we also have to take care of the shop and take care of the customer. And my experience is when you've got a waiter, you're not really able to do either. And that's take care of the shop and take care of the customer. So, kind of getting into it with waiter vehicles, it's something that, customers hanging out in your lobby, they brought their laptop, they're having some snacks, no problem. But, the expectation on their end, is it's going to be done, immediately. We're gonna get your car done immediately without compromise. No matter how packed the schedule is, we're gonna get it in. And I think the downside of that is we're not able to really do a thorough inspection of the vehicle for them for their benefit. The production line stops. We're having to kind of scramble. And I'm talking about situations where, if they schedule the appointment and it's a waiter, still it's not always best policy, or they scheduled for a drop off. And when they come in to drop off the vehicle, they change their mind, that is the customer, and say that, hey, now, I'm just gonna hang out and wait. Shouldn't be too long, is it? And then, kind of like the red siren goes off in our heads, the service advisors, and we're like, oh man, we're thinking, real quick on the spot, how am I going to work this in? How am I going to break this news to the technician? How am I going to find a spot in the production line to get this done? We're scrambling, right? We're scrambling. And once you start doing that, let's be honest, mistakes happen. So again, for the client's benefit, waiters, I believe, really are not a great idea, because you're not able to, again, do a thorough inspection. And again, mistakes can happen because everybody feels rushed. I think that's just, the brutal truth. And, for technicians, it disrupts their efficiency. So, a technician needs a good flow, momentum. A waiter job, I think forces them to kind of, the shop to kind of stop, shift, and break the rhythm. And, for a technician, again, talking about efficiency, it's like asking them to run a marathon, but, with the waiter every mile, stop and, fix a toaster along the way. So, and then get back in the race again. So, because let's be honest, you've got jobs from the night before that maybe a part didn't show up for, vehicles on the rack. The racks are full, the bays are full. You may have a flat bay. No one really wants to jack up a car in a flat bay to do an oil service or something like that. But again, it's circumstantial. But again, you know, I think there's a lot of downsides of a waiter. And for me, explain to the client that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we'd really appreciate if you could drop the vehicle off, and here's why. But number one, when you get here for that oil service, your car is going to be, the engine bay is going to be extremely hot, and for the technician to just start working on your car immediately, it's not realistic. That engine bay has to cool down for quite a while before they put their hands in there, right? It's kind of like cooking on the grill. You're not going to just put your hands in there and start flipping the meat over on the grill, right? You're going to use the proper tools, proper equipment, but you don't want to burn yourself. So again, letting them understand that, there's a reason why that's not a great idea. And that is a primary reason. Again, the car has to cool down for a little bit. Number two, we're not able to offer you a thorough vehicle check over to let you know if we encounter any safety items that you need to know about, because again, it's a rush situation. And it's not always a sales thing. There's a lot of shops that say, oh, we don't want to do a waiter because we're going to lose the opportunity to sell something to the client. Again, I think that's the wrong mentality. We're not looking to sell the client something. We're looking to educate them on what's going on with their vehicle and give them options based on what we see going on. Again, we talked a couple episodes back about, the traffic light system. Green is good, yellow is caution, red is bad, needs attention now. So again, following those methods. But again, I think for customers, it's setting the expectation early when they say that they want to do a waiter, when they're booking the service reservation with you or appointment, letting them that, hey, we want to give your vehicle the best care possible. And we recommend dropping it off so that we can thoroughly inspect it without a time crunch. And I've had to pivot sometimes at the front counter. You get a client that's been a long-term client and they just kind of switch their mind. Maybe their morning of logistics got a little heavy on them and they say, well, hey, I'm just going to wait because, hey, right after this, I've got an appointment down the street. So I don't want to go back home, drop it off, come back and go back to that appointment. I get it. So again, if you're doing loaner cars, keep an extra vehicle on hand for little situations like that, little emergencies, if you will call them logistical emergencies where you can get them down the road, or offer them an Uber. Again, you're still accommodating them, which is primary, and you're still accommodating the shop. So there isn't that time crunch, right? And also, too, again, I spoke just a little while ago about rushing. Rushed jobs 100% lead to mistakes. Mistakes equate to comebacks, and comebacks equate to bad reviews. So again, kind of a losing situation all around. I've had a client here or two over the years call and say, hey, Michael, I was in the area, a tire pressure light just came on. Is that something you could check out for me if I swing by? The answer is always yes, right? We want to help our clients, especially if they're nearby. I don't think there's any excuse in the book to not invite them in, but letting them know, hey, we'll be happy to get it back in the shop and check those tire pressures out for you. However, if it's not a tire pressure issue, we would have to figure out some type of alternate appointment, or we'll make sure the vehicle's safe for you until we can get you back in. Or again, if you've got an extra loaner on hand, pulling one aside, or get them an Uber, to further check it out. But absolutely, if somebody is in the area, needs tire pressures checked, squeeze them in real quick, no worries. But again, just setting the expectation with a client, again, that if it's not the tire pressures, if they all check out good, again, giving them some options, right? Hey, tire pressures are good. We checked them. We're not able to further inspect or evaluate at this time. Would you like to set an appointment to bring the vehicle back? Or again, if you've got a loaner on hand, or can get them an Uber. Either way, again, try and think out of the box, accommodate, think forward before they get there. How can you build value and not shoo them away, right? So that's really good. And for service advisors, waiters, again, it's a crunch. It's a crunch for the technician. It's a time crunch for the service advisor, because if the technician is able to do we'll call it, a digital vehicle inspection, get that information noted down for the service advisor, then the service advisor is literally scrambling to throw that estimate together. And yeah, I think for fluid services, filters, there's going to be some canned jobs probably in your point of sale system or your software that you use that you could just click a button and it's going to populate an estimate. But for things that aren't that one-offs, again, your crunch to present it to the customer, really give the time value of why it's needed, and again, chances are they're probably going to say, hey, I'll come back. I'll come back next time. Next time when I come back, we'll get that done. Oh, Mr. Jones, your rear brakes are worn down to 2 millimeters of life. If this was my mom's car, I'd really recommend rear brake service because, oh, well, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Again, you have to set the expectation. It's not going to be okay. 6 months down the line when they've got 2 millimeters of life left on their brake pads. So again, waiters, I don't feel are really good value to the shop or the customer. And as long as you set the expectation, again, with the customer from the beginning when they're making that service reservation, I think that will alleviate a lot of your waiters. And again, for the ones that scheduled as a drop off and then they come in and they change their mind, again, sometimes you may have to pivot. And a lot of it too is communication, right? I've had the occasional experience where I know I've got an open lift I know that we could take it in as a waiter, but presenting that to the technician in the back that's in the middle of doing an engine, we'll call it timing chain job. Do I really want to go back there and disrupt his mental thought process or her mental thought process and say, hey, I'm really sorry, but I got to pull you off this timing chain job. We have a waiter oil service. It's not going to go over too well. I promise you that. I've been there before. Life lessons, right? You have to think of that stuff, right? Again, it's like be like, somebody putting together a very parts oriented, many parts watch, right? Putting a watch together and then saying, hey, we need you to, go down the street and deliver this package. It's not going to bode well to the watchmaker. So they're in that mental thought process, the technician is, of all the things going on that they need to do that job to make sure that it's going right, and pulling them off the production line to do an oil service or something like that just is not going to go over well and isn't the right thing to do anyways. So, don't do that. Again, let the client know that, hey, we were not expecting the vehicle as a waiter today. I'm not able to accommodate, but again, we could get you a shuttle, we could get you an Uber. I may have a loaner laying around. Just be transparent with them, be honest with them. And I don't think they're going to get upset with you. But again, waiters, and how do we feel about those situations, especially from the technician side? I've often encountered, a grumpy technician in the morning and, saying, hey, just to let we're going to have one or two waiters today. I'm going to divide them up between the three people that are back here, but, you may be one of them. So just kind of a heads up, and you kind of get that grumble. But again, it's based on the situation at the time at the shop. And obviously, I'm not telling you as a shop or a service advisor what to do. But again, my personal experience is that doing waiters is it's a rush situation. It doesn't work out for you, or the technician. So, and I think some of that fits into shop culture as well, right? The communication part of it. So if you really know a couple days in advance that you're going to have a waiter, whether it's an alignment or an oil service or brake fluid service, something in that line, battery replacement, and, again, the communication, letting the team know, the team, right? Front and the back, the team, the shop culture, getting that information out early in a morning meeting the next day, before the vehicle shows up, so that everybody in the back is aware that we're going to have a waiter battery or a waiter oil service or whatever it is. So that way it's diffused mentally days ahead versus on the spot, tap on the shoulder, or you're standing there at the fender with the work order and keys and saying, hey, I know you're in the middle of doing engine work, but I need to pull you off to do an oil service, right? No one likes surprises. Technicians, clients, service advisors, anybody. But again, it's how we communicate with each other. And I think a lot of that, not I think I know, a lot of the times for technicians, the rub is, no one told me anything. I didn't know. And again, I get that. There's a big frustration there. We oftentimes as service advisors, we're so customer focused that we lose sight of speaking to our other team members, the technicians, right? Him or her, going back there and saying, hey, by the way, keep them informed as well, right? It's our job. Service advisor, not just a liaison for the client, you're a liaison for the technician as well. And again, that's where communication comes in. It's always good to involve the technicians in what's going on. You have to. I mean, it's your duty. Again, no one likes surprises, but in those morning huddle meetings, talking about things like that might be coming up the next day, waiters, things of that nature. But again, just the communication part, so that there wasn't a surprise. And again, if there is we'll call it a pop fly, if a client comes in that morning and changes their mind to, now they want to wait on it, realistically, weighing the pros and cons, not about necessarily, I hate to say it, what was the technician going to think, but yeah, valuing what the technician's doing, and do you really have the time to do it as a waiter, and if you have to, going back there and being honest, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they changed their appointment, they want to hang out, I think we can get them accommodated, are you able to get this done? Check with them before you make a commitment to the client, right? Because again, it's valuing not only client's time, but your time as well as a service advisor and your technician's time, right? And I don't mention the technician last in that time frame, but it's everybody's time. And again, how prepared are you to deliver that value experience on a waiter platform? I don't see it adding up, and I don't see it working personally. But hey, you're welcome to change my mind. Let me know. Service Advisor Nation, really appreciate you for tuning into another episode of the AutoFix Advisor Cast. And keep your bays full. Make sure you're doing proactive AC services for people. What is that? Well, don't wait for someone to call your shop and let them know, or let you know that they've got an issue with their AC. Go back through your service history. The vehicle's been there, numerous times. If it's been more than, we'll call it 3, 4, 5 years while the vehicle's there, and it's that time of year, coming off the end of May, June, July, August, across the country. That's typically the warmer months that we see, but, offering a proactive Freon check and adjust, to prevent an AC issue, right? Freon does dissipate over time. So, being proactive and again, helping your client, it'd be a great time to mention that type of service when you're going to be doing a cabin filter or something, because it kind of goes in line with HVAC. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I went back through your service history, and car's been coming here for, 4 or 5 years now, and I don't see where we've ever done any AC work. And I think it'd be a great idea to do a proactive Freon level check and adjust. And while the vehicle's here today, we could offer that at this price point, and make sure that your AC is cooling optimally for you for this hot summer coming up. Please let us know if you're okay with us doing that while the vehicle's here. And again, you're thinking about them, you're thinking about their comfort, you're thinking about, what can you do to help them, and present it that way. And 90% of the time, the customer's going to say yes. So again, it's a win-win. You're helping the customer, you're helping the shop, you're helping your technicians. Everybody wins. So just, give that a shot. Just food for thought. But again, Service Advisor Nation, great to talk to you again. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the upcoming week. And thank you so much. All right.